Welcome back to Excuse My Grandma. It's Kim here. I'm doing this episode without Grandma Gail today because we haven't caught up in a while. I've done 2 solo episodes before and people really loved it. And I kind of have been super busy with our guests and with Grandma, so haven't had a chance to sit down with you all and get into it. But I really want to use these episodes to learn more about each other and have heart to hearts and talk about relationship things that especially women in their 20s, 30s, and living in New York are kind of dealing with and all over the place. So hopefully this can be relatable to you. I'll answer your questions at the end, so make sure to stay tuned for that. But today I thought we would talk about toxic relationships versus healthy relationships because I feel like the lines are very blurred nowadays and sometimes I don't even know the difference. But I will go through a little bit of my experiences and hopefully it can be relatable for some of you. So, by the way, I am in a relationship and I feel like if you follow me on social media, you've probably figured that out by now from a few of my reposts, especially from my personal account. But I have a boyfriend, which is really exciting. And it feels really special because I feel like a lot of people have been following my dating journey for 4 years now. And I was always sharing throughout my experiences kind of how I went on, I don't know, 100 dates at this point until finding my current boyfriend. And it was a really fun process. And I obviously, this is early stages and a new relationship, but I do feel like I found what I was looking for out of those dating experiences, which was a really great connection and someone who prioritizes me. So I'm not probably going to share too much about this, but we met through my friend. It's actually her brother. So it was a setup, which grandma would be happy about because she's more into setups than dating apps for sure. And it is a long distance relationship. We're actually across the country. So I can get into that in a different episode because I feel like there's a lot of things that come from long distance and keeping that up. But I didn't want to keep anyone in the dark since it is official. And yeah, I don't want to have secrets from anyone. It's not a secret, but I'm trying to figure out still what I should share and what should be private. But yeah, let me know if you have questions. The biggest question I feel like from people on social media so far has been, does Grandma Miguel like him? And she has met him and she thinks he's great. Obviously, she's not the biggest proponent of long distance, but we'll see. I feel like she'll come around when it comes to that. Otherwise, things are going amazing. So just wanted to say that. And it obviously is on theme because this is a very healthy relationship, probably my healthiest relationship. My college relationship was healthy, but I was like 18 to 21 and just of nature of being younger, you're a little bit more immature, so I feel like I'd pick fights about things and goes both ways obviously. So yeah, I would say it's the healthiest one I've been in so far. And I think first maybe we define what is a toxic relationship, what is a healthy relationship. Toxic relationships, I think there's a lot of things that come with that are kind of telltale signs, and most of us probably know this even though we choose to ignore it, which is manipulation, controlling behavior, gaslighting, jealousy, lack of emotional support, making you feel like you're not a priority in their life, all of that. So I've of course felt that to varying degrees in various relationships. For years on end, there was one that really stuck out because it was kind of an on and off again relationship and it was a bit unstable. And I think it started out with like that crazy butterfly connection that a lot of us are like, oh my gosh, it's like the movies. But a lot of the time, that's actually not a great sign if you're that kind of on edge about what's going to happen. Do they like me? And those kind of warning signs that come with it. So I think it was clear from day one in that case. But sometimes you don't know. Sometimes you think, okay, I'm going to give the person a chance. It is the connection. It's about how many times you kind of go back or to this person after they're not repeatedly treating you how you feel like you should be treated. And when you get in that cycle is when it really becomes an issue. And you really only break that cycle when you want to, because I feel like I had so many people in my life, friends, family, being in that one situation and multiple dating situations saying like, it seems like you're unhappy, or that this person isn't treating you right, or that this isn't the relationship that you should be in. And you hear it in the back of your head, but like, we don't listen. We're only going to listen when you have that aha moment. And I think it's different for everyone, and it's been different for a lot of my relationships that weren't perfect. I think a lot of the time it comes to a point where you're like, wow, I'm leaving this experience actually feeling really shitty, or the stress that I'm experiencing during the week, wishing for them to make a plan or to text me, is so outweighing like anything good happening, or even the 1 hour you get with them a week, that it really just becomes like the balance is off. And I think for me, that had to happen a lot of times for me to be like, I respect myself so much, I'm not going to allow this to happen anymore. And sometimes it's about meeting somebody new who kind of reminds you, oh, wait, this is how you're supposed to be treated. This is how you're supposed to feel. And it sounds so obvious, but I genuinely think you give that advice to other people. I think I give the best advice to people, and then I never take it myself. I think grandma gives me the best advice. I rarely take it. You have to kind of live through it and experience it. I'm very like emotional based versus somebody kind of telling me logically what to do. So I think if you're that way, it can especially be hard when it's like toxicity in disguise, when there's like that whirlwind of emotions and it's carefree and it's unpredictable. However, I think the lack of commitment over time, or like the not meeting my emotional needs and leaving me feel rejected, really was the end of it. Because you never want to chase somebody's validation, and that's the worst feeling ever. You want to feel like they feel so special even to get to spend the time with you, and it should go both ways. And I think timing plays a huge role as well. I think you can meet people, and if your head is still with that toxic person, or I shouldn't say toxic person because everyone has like different, I guess, emotional needs and behaviors, but the person who was, I guess, toxic to you, therefore a toxic relationship, I think that if that's still in your life, even if you meet someone who is healthy and great, like you aren't going to care or realize that. But I do think if you meet somebody who is treating you exactly like how you've been wanting to be treated, and you like them, that's the key part too. Like, it's not just about them being a nice person. You have to also have chemistry and those other things. Then I think that toxic relationship will be so far in the past. At least that's my experience. With my current boyfriend, I feel like when I did meet him, it definitely, I'm not gonna lie, it wasn't like, oh my God, we're in a rom-com and blah, blah, blah. But I totally never wanted to talk to anyone toxic again, because I felt like it felt special and great. And I feel like that's how you should feel in a healthy relationship. What does that look like? Mutual respect, support, open communication. You feel it. You don't have to be told those things. I think the mutual interest from a start is really important. You don't want to feel like you're questioning their interest in you. And you always want to give people multiple chances, because I think they can surprise you. But I think by date 3, if you're not excited about them, it could just be that they're a great guy or girl and not for you. And then the center of it should always be fun and joy, and like you actually had a really good time with that person and you actually were laughing the whole time. And obviously that can come with someone who is kind of toxic to you also, but I think you can tell the difference when someone's making you feel good and making you laugh versus that kind of like teasing behavior. And I think I wanted to talk about that too, because like constantly seeing in the movies this idea of the hate relationship between the guy and the girl, and then they learn to love each other, and it's kind of the media glorifying that unhealthy relationship that's been romanticized. So, like How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, they don't really like each other. The Proposal, Anyone But You, that just came out with Sydney Sweeney. It starts with that like fighting and then love that comes with it. And I don't really like that kind of teasing nature. That's sort of mean. I think you can banter with each other, and obviously that's really fun, especially over text and whatever. But yeah, I think in the movies, we need more rom-coms and TV that are kind of reflecting that healthy, fun relationship, which is why I think everyone's been obsessed with that show Nobody Wants This, the Aaron Foster show, because it shows two people openly communicating and their interest in each other, which is never the question. Maybe it's the religious stuff, the timing, what everyone else thinks, but it's never how they feel about each other or their, I guess, reflection on the self-work that they're doing and the open communication. Like I want to see more stories like that. So we stop glorifying those other kind of stories. And I'm such a victim of this. Like I love this goes back a long time. Like I love the 1950s movie Pillow Talk, where Doris Day and Rock Hudson, they're neighbors and they're talking on the phone, and she's so annoyed with him because he's like always having women over to the apartment, and then they end up falling in love. Like I don't know if that's realistic to start off with someone who's has totally different values, and then suddenly everything matches up and it's amazing. So that's kind of my thoughts, because I feel like it doesn't mean that anyone's a bad person. All it means is that it could potentially be a mismatch if you are constantly feeling like this person's lack of effort or communication is lacking. And sometimes it's because they're actually toxic, but sometimes it's just that they're not invested or interested, and that's just that it's not the right fit. So at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter, I guess, which dynamic it is. It just kind of matters that you know how this relationship is making you feel, and realistically try to get out of it if it's not positive, because you don't want to feel insecure, you don't want to feel anxious, you don't want to feel like you're chasing anyone, because that just leads to emotional turmoil and doubting yourself constantly. And I've been in situations where I'm like, I never want to go back there again. And you do, because you feel like that, like your emotions are so high and it feels so powerful. But I guess all I can say is I promise that you can find stability with someone that you are really in love with and excited by. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that. So let's get into some listener questions that people wrote in on Instagram. I tried to pull a variety because there were a lot. The first one is, what do you find most difficult about dating in New York City? So for those who follow and have listened for a while, you know that I went on dates with almost 100 men in New York in the last 2 or 3 years, since the pandemic, really. And so I've had a lot of experience, and I obviously ended up now dating someone who doesn't live in New York. Also, a lot of those dates that I was going on were in Florida. So I've kind of now dated in a few cities, and I think there's not a huge difference between them. I think the only thing is that New York City definitely has a lot of characters. So we have the finance bro, and then we have the artsy guys, and there's a lot to choose from. And I think choice is only an amazing thing, until it comes to commitment, because I think we can go out one night to bars and then we meet new people every night, and it could seem like, okay, I had a good date last night, but 3 more guys are texting to meet up, and it's really tempting, and you don't know, is that connection going to be a better connection than the one I have now? So I think we've talked about this before, but just the having too many options can be really hard. And I think also since people are settling down a little bit later, especially in New York City where everyone's very career focused and dating or being in a relationship, people don't often have time to make it like their number one. So I think just the act of settling down later and later gets a little stressful, especially for my girls who sometimes feel like, okay, I have a timeline that I want to kind of abide by, which, and you probably shouldn't do it very strict, but I get it. Like, we have a clock, whatever. And then the guys are like in their 40s and they don't feel like settling down. I see that a lot in New York versus other places. So that would be my thoughts on that. Second question is advice for my twin girls applying to colleges. So another situation where I went to about probably 30 schools in person. You're seeing a trend now. And I applied to, or I guess I wrote my applications for a bunch as well because I applied early to Cornell and then didn't really have to do much searching after that once I got in. But I think my advice would be definitely go visit in person because you have a certain feeling when you're on a campus and you're seeing the student body and you're seeing the weather. Of course, I think when I went to Cornell, it was a beautiful day and it's the tundra, so it's not always accurate. Know what time of year you're going. And also stay overnight, even if it's a family friend or a friend of a friend, people are excited to host you and show you their life at school. And then you get a sense of going out there, which like realistically is why a lot of us are going to college, for that social experimentation. And then with Cornell, I do wish the program I was in was a little bit stronger for what I wanted to study. So even though it's an amazing school, it's not always based off of how great the school is as much as it is, oh, okay, this school is specifically known for writing, media, veterinary, like whatever you want to study, make sure it's strong in that program. Third question, will you ever have your mom on the podcast? Of course, I want to have my mom on the podcast at some point. I know everyone asks that question. They also want to see Poppy. I will show Poppy at 1 million followers on our TikTok, Instagram, so we're about halfway there. But for my mom, I have to kind of think because she's behind the camera a lot of the time. Every time pretty much that I'm spending with my grandma, unless we're on a shoot or a trip or whatever, my mom is also there. So it's really a generational podcast. We're telling family stories. We are connecting the generations, and it's about family. So naturally, I feel like she has to be included, but it really is about me and Grandma Gail. So we'll see once we figure out what people kind of want to see from her. Would you go on a road trip with Grandma? I don't think I'd want to be on a tour bus with her or anything, but I think if we were doing a road trip together and we were able to stop at hotels and get separate rooms because we're not good at sharing rooms, she snores, she gets up, and I just have no patience. It's my fault. But I think that if we could do it like a nice way, maybe. But I think we prefer flying and staying in hotels than a road trip, although it would make for very good content. Okay, this has been so much fun. Obviously short and sweet, but I want to just touch base with everyone. I can talk about all different types of topics, relationships or not. Let me know because I want to be able to kind of cater to what you all want to hear and open up more about my own life so we can get to know each other more. Also, again, share your own stories, share questions on our social media. You can DM us at Excuse My Grandma. You can also send us an email. And yeah, thank you everyone for listening. And just remember, you deserve a love that makes you feel safe and valued and confident. And yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week.